Best kind of fun I could ever have in a car that I got for free. I'm sure as you've gathered that I have the most fun in cheap cars. My adage is quantity over quality. And probably the most fun I've ever had in a car was this $500 Peugeot 505 STI that I bought from my buddy Martin's mom. And in high school, she had this car, and man, we beat the heck out of this thing. It was slow as the day was long, but it was rear-wheel drive with a limited slip differential and handled fantastically. Over the course of our high school years, we would run the thing in reverse, top speed, stick it in first gear, sidestep the clutch, do the biggest smoking J burnouts, and had the most fun we possibly could with this car. But in the late 90s, she decided to sell the car and pick herself up something new, and that lent it to me for $500. And I love this thing. I know Peugeot gets like a bad rap as a like unreliable car, but the fit and finish of this car was very nice. Probably one of the nicest interiors back then that I had ever seen. Very nice leather interior, had a great sound system from the factory. It was quite a buy for 500 bucks. But the problem with this car was it only had 120 horsepower. I loved power sliding, drifting, and all that. So I devised a way to get the car to do that without adding a turbo or anything crazy. And what I did was I drilled 2 holes in the rear wheel wells. I put a 5-gallon bucket of water in the trunk and put a windshield squirter on a switch so I could put water on the tires so I could drift this thing. And I had the best time taking my friends out in this car, and I would tell them, like, I know this car seems slow, but it does the best drifts you will ever imagine. And I would go around corners, first gear, power shift in a second, and just huge power slides. And no one could figure out why this car, seemingly so slow in a straight line, would drift like crazy. But I had this car for a few years, and I just couldn't kill the thing. This was a couple years before AMS. This was when Martin was living with me and my wife, and my garage is full of Mercurs, and my driveway's full of Mercurs, and now I've got Peugeots in there. And this is when we were kind of trying to figure out the whole 4-cylinder turbo game, you know, just coming from old V8 muscle cars. It was a big change. Now, the only thing better than this car could be the turbo version. And I got my, I'll say, opportunity to procure one in the fact of across from the towing shop that I worked at was a municipal airport. And one day, this 85 Peugeot 505 Turbo just shows up in the parking lot. And it's there a week later. It's there 2 weeks later. It's there 2 months later. I called over to the airport and asked, like, what's going on with this Peugeot that's sitting in your parking lot? And they're like, we don't know. It was abandoned here months ago, and we're just going to have the thing towed. And I said, well, why don't I just take it off your hands for you? And I said, whatever, take it. So I got the thing back to the shop, and my original plan was like, well, how can I take some parts from this car and put it on mine? But the first thing I want to do is like, let me get this thing started. Well, I don't have keys. So we hotwire the thing, and it cranks just fine, but won't start. But it's out of gas. Like, all right, put some gas in it, and the thing fires right up. So now I've got myself a dilemma. Like, what do? Do I try to like turbo my car, or do I switch the VINs? I didn't know what to do, but I knew one thing is I really wanted to take it to this autocross. So I got this fantastic idea, young guy. I'll just switch the license plates. I mean, you know, who would be any of the wiser should I get pulled over if I have a license plate from another Peugeot on it? So I ended up taking this thing to an autocross on its completely dry rotted tires. And man, this thing was fast. But it sounded like a bunch of bolts in a can underneath the hood. And it was just detonating just beyond control. Being a young guy, I didn't know much about turbos. I was always a Chevy V8 kind of guy. Like, well, I'll just throw some octane booster in there. It, just must need a little octane in there. Yeah, that wasn't the case. It ended up surviving this autocross excursion, and I had the most fun ever. And normally in an autocross, you're very concerned with the time you're going to get. where I was a little more concerned with power shifting the thing into second gear and making cones go flying. So I've got all of the cone workers just running around this course as cones are flying in every direction that I'm going. The best kind of fun I could ever have in a car that I got for free. Thankfully, the car made it back to my house, ended up blowing the head gasket, and the demise of that car was just a parts car for my 87, which I still couldn't kill, and finally got tired of it, cut the roof off of the car, and made a convertible. Had a convertible for a couple years. I would not advise that, because when you cut the roof off of a unibody car, well, the side doors is a little floppy. It may have been a slight death trap, but nonetheless, we had a lot of fun. And the way I finally ended up killing this car was we put a nitrous kit on it, and during a third gear burnout, we blew the intake manifold off of it, and that was the end of the Peugeot.
We'd like to thank AvalonKing for their continued support of the VINwiki YouTube channel. I have their Armor Shield 9 ceramic coating on all my cars, and I love it. The increased shine, the reflectivity, the ease of cleaning, and the protection of the paint all make it a tremendous thing to add value and protection to your car. You can check it out at the link in the description below, and we're going to continue to experiment and do interesting projects like the S55, which hopefully at some point soon will get to be shot off the cliff to see if it protects your car in the event of an accident.
Oh, that's cute, Ed. I'm over here at Gina's Garage with AvalonKing building a V12 supercar from scratch. Yeah, we're way past ceramic coatings now, buddy.
Okay, well, we'll hear more from Casey about the King Zero project later this month. But again, thank you to AvalonKing for supporting the channel. Check them out in the link in the description below.